Mugrower,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
Wojciechowski,
Here.
Erickson,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Mayor Palmieri.
Here.
Present 7.
And Deputy Mayor McGrower will lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
We are mindful of the blessings of liberty that we have in this nation. May our decisions tonight improve the quality of life in our city and for our residents.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're at citizen statements to council, and these statements are for items that are not on the agenda. Do we have anyone registered to speak for the general comment?
Yes, I do. Mi Yang for item 42.
That would be at public comment
Oh.
on agenda items
sorry.
after our public hearing.
Okay. No one
But
is
this would be
registered.
for items not on the agenda. Do we have
No one
anybody
is
else?
registered.
Okay, thanks. All right. We will move on to public hearing, Resolution 21-257. Were there any comments or anything registered for this item?
No one is
Okay.
registered.
Revised 2021 Community Development Block Grant, Annual Action Plan to increase allocation by $12,210 for a total of $840,760. Can we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I will call 2 more times, I'm sorry, for public comment. And since we didn't have anyone registered, Lynn, do we still need to do that 3 times?
Yes.
Okay. Second call for public comment on this public hearing. Third and final call for public comment. All right. We have the motion and the second. Any discussion on this public hearing? Is Mr. Davis here? Looks like we increased 12,000 to our CDBG. I know we don't have Ms. Brandt here. What is the general increase for on this?
HUD recalculated allocations in Wisconsin, so we got more money, so we had to amend the plan to add the 12,000 into the plan for 2021, and we added that to the Central City line item.
Thank you, sir.
Mhm.
All right, if there's no more discussion, please take the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
And now we will move on to public comment on agenda items. And as I understand it, we have 2 people registered.
Correct. First one is Mi Yang.
And are they attending virtually with us? No?
I'm not sure they signed up online to speak.
Okay, so we don't have access? Or- They're not online, okay. All right, well, if they come on, can you let us know if it happens to go out of sequence a little bit here?
Okay.
All right. And Mi Yang?
Mi Yang and Angie Lee, I had signed up.
And neither one?
Okay.
Oh, she is. Okay.
Good.
Angie,
Hello.
good evening and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
If you
Okay.
could please state your name and address.
Yes. Angie Lee, 1045 Grove Street in Oshkosh.
Yes, welcome. Go ahead.
Thank you. I've prepared a statement that I would like to read. Dear Madam Mayor, council members, and city staff, I come before you today as the chairwoman of our city's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee with the request to pass the Standing in Solidarity with the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Community Resolution, written by fellow committee member Mi Yang and UWO professors Dr. Ju-Yeon Son and Dr. Mai Si Thao and myself. While the 4 of us women who identify as Asian come from very different backgrounds, We have used our collective voice to raise the concerns of other citizens in Oshkosh and around the country. And while I can't speak for everyone in the APITA community, I can share my own experiences. I moved to Oshkosh in 2015 and have been fortunate to experience the welcomeness, inclusiveness, and hospitality of this community. I have found wonderful friend groups where I feel safe and a sense of belonging. I also have experienced hurtful moments of blatant microaggressions, but have used those experiences to reflect on my own biases and learn from them. While I've been fortunate to not have experienced any active violence or glaring discrimination during the pandemic, I know members of my community have, and others who live in fear because of reports of increased violence against our people. It was their cry for action that inspired the writing of the resolution and brings me here today. We intentionally chose the title of Standing in Solidarity with the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American Community because it is our hope that our city will come together to show support for a group that has richly contributed to the culture, economy, and progress of this city. I believe that is what makes for strong communities. We stand with each other during moments of struggle and hardship. We display compassion to peoples that are being targeted due to their perceived race, nationality, religion, sexuality, gender, or ability. We stand up and declare the message that Mayor Palmieri powerfully stated, that hate has no home here in Oshkosh. We encourage all members of our community to denounce any and all acts of hatred and to deeply reflect on the biases we hold, not just towards the PETA community, but for all marginalized groups. It is my deep belief that we only flourish when we flourish together, and I ask that you pass a resolution that boldly declares our city as one that will stand together with one another in solidarity and create safe and inclusive spaces for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mi Yang is with us as well. If you could provide your name and address, thank you. Welcome, Mi Yang. Yes. Mi, are you muted perhaps?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Okay. This is Mi Yang. My address is 2825 Prairie Wood Drive, Oshkosh. First, I want to thank the City of Oshkosh and all the council members for your time and for the opportunity to speak. What you have in front of you is a resolution to stand in solidarity with the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American community. That resolution is in front of you because many people in the Asian American communities have been living in fear since COVID-19 started. Fear of people, fear of others attacking them. As you may have known or heard, attacks on Asian Americans have been on the rise this past year and a half, more than any other times we can remember. Oshkosh consists of over 2,000 Asian Americans, with the Hmong being the largest group. I am an Asian American, a Hmong descendant who migrated to the United States 40 years ago as a refugee after the Vietnam War in 1975. I am serving as the board president for the Hmong Service Center, a nonprofit organization established since 1984 in Oshkosh to help Hmong refugees resettle and learn to adapt to life in this area. I am also a member of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the City of Oshkosh. Oshkosh has been my home for over 34 years. I love this place. I raised a beautiful family here. I work here, and I contribute back to the community. As much as all the barriers we had to encounter in this new land, I do not recall any time where the Asian communities would feel so unsafe. As a citizen, I am here tonight to ask each and every council member for your understanding, your support, and your approval of the resolution to stand in solidarity with the Asian Pacific Islander, that's the American community. Your decision tonight will help our children and the Asian community in the city of Oshkosh continue to feel safe living here. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else with us virtually that wish to speak, or perhaps just attending? All right, we shall proceed. Thank you, Mi Yang and Angie Lee. We'll next move on to the consent agenda, and we'll take a motion and a second for consent.
Move approval?
Second.
And discussion. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, next we move on to pending ordinances. Pending ordinance 21-280, approve zone change from neighborhood mixed-use district to suburban mixed-use district with a plan development overlay for properties located at the 1700 block of West 9th Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, next is pending ordinance 21-281, approve zone change from urban mixed-use district to urban mixed-use district with a plan development overlay for properties located at 630-640 North Main Street. Plan Commission recommends approval.
I move approval?
Second.
All right, discussion on 21-281. Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, and our third pending ordinance 21-282, amend membership of Long Range Finance Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All right, seeing none, please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson. Aye. Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, next we're at new ordinances. We have several new ordinances this evening. No action will happen on these items tonight. This is a first reading. The first one is ordinance 21-283, limit parking to 2 hours on the west side of Oregon Street from 15th Avenue to 79 feet north, and correct an existing parking ordinance on Sawyer Street. Ordinance 21-284, amend ordinances pertaining to Board of Appeals, appeal and appeals of administrative decisions and zoning interpretations. Ordinance 21-285, amend ordinances pertaining to terms of membership for city boards and commissions, consistent naming of the Fair Housing Commission, and clarifying, updating statutory references pertaining to the library board. Ordinance 21-286, amend parks ordinances pertaining to add William Waters Plaza as a park and to clarify authority pertaining to parking authorization. And 21-287, amend ordinances pertaining to special privilege, all-night parking permits. All right, those will be read again at our next council meeting. So certainly, if you have questions or comments in advance of that, please contact Common Council or City Manager's Office. So we are now at new resolutions. The first one is Resolution 21-288. Approve General Development Plan and Specific Implementation Plan for an auto service facility for property located at the 1700 block of West 9th Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval.
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
All right, discussion on 21-288. Mr. Lyons, I see you're at the ready. Would you like to give us a summary of this project?
Yes, Madam Mayor. This is a redevelopment of an existing site to include a new Jiffy Lube location. This was workshopped in front of Planning Commission, held a neighborhood meeting, and now it's bringing forward to Planning Commission, hopefully bring that redevelopment to the city.
Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Lyons, council's gotten a fair amount of feedback, I think, on this particular development over the last few weeks. Planning Commission heard it a few weeks ago, and a couple of the concerns that the residents have that at the very least we should just speak about here tonight. They've got concerns with traffic patterns, with traffic flows, 9th Avenue congestion and traffic itself, as well as stormwater management. All three things that definitely are within our purview to talk about. I thought it was very nice, the developer has spoken about and provided information regarding the traffic impact of this development, extremely limited. I think would be even an overstatement. I think this might be one of the very few or lowest traffic creating businesses that could potentially even go on that lot. Can you speak to that or confirm for the people at home and talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, in reviewing this project and working with the developers and our traffic folks did take a look at the traffic pattern in that roundabout. Obviously, it's a very congested area of the city with that roundabout at 9th. And reviewing the anticipated trips generated by a Jiffy Lube type location, it is, as you said, on the very bottom spectrum of what generates trips. I believe the applicant did some digging and found the number of existing trips generated by the local businesses in that area, and this would add a 0.003% increase in overall traffic. So as you said, it's a very minor impact. In terms of stormwater management, this is one of those situations where we know we have an existing area of the city that was developed under older minor stormwater management practices. As part of redevelopment, it has to be brought up to current city standards of maintaining all their water on their site. So the area should see an overall improvement in stormwater.
I think you just hit it on the head. I wanted to make sure I spoke correctly to a few residents, basically that any development should not have a negative impact on their properties in terms of stormwater management, that they're responsible for controlling their own, and if they weren't, it could come back to planning for some assistance.
Correct. We work very closely with the folks at Public Works to make sure our stormwater management plans are adhered to. And in a case like this, like I said, it really should be an improvement to the area.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilmember Ford, just a question, since you're the council liaison for Plan Commission.
Yeah.
Were there any other concerns that came up as a result of the neighborhood meeting or any of the other?
Those were the big ones that came to our attention. I mean, the traffic was by far the one folks are most concerned about, and the developer was very thorough in describing how that's going to be minimal.
And thanks for asking those questions, Councilmember Mugarauer. Those were the ones that I had come up with, so there you go. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Questions, discussion? All right, please take the roll.
Mugarauer,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson. Aye. Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, next we have a new resolution 21-289, approve specific implementation plan amendment for lot line adjustment and shared driveway at 1725 West 9th Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval of this item.
I move. Oh,
Go ahead.
so moved.
Second.
Ford and Mugarauer. Okay. Discussion. All right. Oh, Councilmember
I guess
Ford.
just this is part of the same project, and this is just
It appears.
crossing Ts. Yeah.
Yep. And please take the roll.
Mugarauer,
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Next is new resolution 21-290, approve general development plan and specific implementation plan for gas station, convenience store, and laundromat for property located at 630-640 North Main Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. A motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Erickson and Miller, thank you. Discussion on 21-290. Mr. Lyons again. Just a question, there have been some concerns just in my neighborhood. This happens to be around the corner from my house. Everybody's speculating, well, what's it going to look like? And if folks want to take a look at the designs, they can go to the Plan Commission website or the Planning Services page.
They can go to the Planning Services website where we do have that link to the digital documents that the city maintains. They're also happy to call our office and we can make sure we get them over to them.
Sure.
It is
sure.
mainly a all brick building, so it should be a nice character adding to the downtown.
I think I read that this also is expected to have electric charging stations.
Correct, the applicant is proposing 3 electric charging stations be added along the south property line.
All right, well, it's definitely an improvement over what was previously there, at least in the condition it was. All right, any other discussion? Please take the roll.
McGrower.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Palmieri. Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
21-291, approve and execute relocation order. Approve determination of necessity to acquire portion of 2240 West Town Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
Ford and Morgrower and Ford, and discussion. All right, please take the roll.
McGrower.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
And 21-292 was pulled, withdrawn by staff. So we are at 21-293, approve land acquisition portion of Canadian National Railroad property located between East Parkway Avenue and East Irving Avenue, $29,500. Plan Commission recommends approval.
So moved.
Second.
McGrower and Erickson. Discussion on 21-293. Mr. Robbie, I think this would be yours. This is for the purpose of a detention or retention pond, perhaps? Is that correct?
Yes, this would be to construct a dry detention basin to help manage peak flow in the Parkway Avenue watershed.
All right, anybody else? Questions? Thank you so much. Oh,
Question. Would
Ms.
this look
Hanson.
similar to the one near New York Avenue?
It would be very similar in design to the one along the railroad tracks between New York and Baldwin, correct?
Perfect. Cool. Thank you.
anyone else? All right, thank you. Please take the roll.
McGrower.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Wojciechowski.
Aye.
Erickson.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
All right, Resolution 21-294, approve Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee recommendation regarding standing in solidarity with the Asian Pacific Islander Desi American APIDA community. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Wojciechowski and Erickson, thank you. Discussion? All right. Councilmember Erickson.
I just wanted to say I'm thankful to the DEI committee for putting this together and all the time and thoughtfulness that they put into this. You know, I think it's our role as a city and leaders to kind of set the tone and recognize that there are members of our community who have been experiencing hate and have not felt welcomed here in the last year that we've had. So I think, you know, resolutions like this matter, language matters, and I'm thankful for the work that's been put into this. So, thank you.
Certainly. Agreed. Councilmember Wojciechowski.
Not much more to add than our speakers today, so I'm appreciative for what they said. You know, I think this is symbolic, but, you know, it matters and it has an impact, and especially for young people who are living in this community or people who are looking for communities to move to. It's important when you see that your leaders or your representatives are, you know, they notice you, they're paying attention. So I think this is extremely important, and I hope we pass it tonight. Thank you.
Yes, and their voices certainly are heard. Thank you. Shall we take the roll?
Oh.
Oh, apologies. Councilmember Grauer.
Nope, that's okay. I appreciate the floor. Actually, I want to echo what both fellow council members said. Ms. Erickson said it very, very well. Appreciative of the effort that was put into this and the thoughtfulness. I do have a minor amendment to make, if council will hear it. I'd move to amend, I'll give you the reason first, so at least I can maybe get a second to hear it. Line 5, it says, whereas Mayor Palmieri recently announced that hate has no home. Fully agree 100%. I think these resolutions are meant to be not necessarily symbolic, but yet they're about the cause and about the purpose, not necessarily about a specific individual and anything that they've said or done. I'd move to amend line 5 to instead read, whereas hate has no home in the city of Oshkosh, and the city of Oshkosh stands with APIDA community in condemning all acts of discrimination and violence, especially when targeting individuals based upon their perceived race and. So I move to make that amendment.
I'll second.
Discussion. Councilmember Grauer.
Thank you. As I mentioned, I think it's more about the issue than it is a person. I did reach out to Mayor Palmieri in advance. I wanted to give her a heads up and ask if she'd be supportive of something, just clarifying this. Has no negative reflection on the work that they've done or anything that the mayor has said in public or even private or anything like that. Just more about the condemning of the hate itself. So that would be my reasoning for it.
And yes, thank you, Councilmember Grauer. And yes, we did speak to that. And I apologize at the late notice. There was a request from the authors that the language maintain the content. And at first, you know, as you and I discussed, I did not see that being an issue with making that change. However, it was brought to my attention that the voices that are being shared here are very concerned about the identity erasure and the voices being changed. And I have to say that I learned a lot through reading this resolution. I at first did not know what Desi American was, so I had to do a little bit of research on that. And so I share with you that it was expressed after we had that contact that they would like to maintain the language as is. Other discussion, comments? Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, could you expand on the reasoning?
As I recall, there was some conversation regarding what had occurred with a similar type resolution in another community, and that there had been some kind of back and forth between council and committee, and it was expressed that their desire to work with community and go through DEI and then to council, that, you know, they preferred it in that way to kind of avoid that send it back to committee kind of process. And we're quite passionate regarding this resolution as well as some others that they were working on at the time. Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I appreciate the intent of Councilmember Mugrower's amendment. I would have supported it. I think knowing now that the DEI members who wrote this would like to keep it as intended, I think I would, prioritize what they have in this resolution, and if they, intended to keep it as is, I think I would support that, keeping it.
Anyone else? Councilmember Ford?
I guess I'll just plead to hear from anybody else, because I don't know, this doesn't seem like a huge deal to me in either in either way. So I guess that was my thank you for expanding on the comment. I was just curious as to if DEI had come out and said spoke specifically about that paragraph. I mean, right, regardless. I mean, this amendment or this resolution demonstrates that we as a council are taking this stance. So I don't know. I keep thinking about this. So if anyone else wants to talk.
Councilmember Wojciechowski?
I guess my take is, they presented us a resolution, they wrote it, using their shared experiences, and they felt it was important, to mention that our mayor specifically said that. And I think that's important, when you have leaders who are specifically saying things like that. As we're passing this, we're saying it, but I think they found it important to specifically say that our mayor is in support of this and said that hate has no home. And maybe it's just to emphasize that I don't know their intentions behind it, but I don't feel it's my place to change the resolution that they presented to us, specifically to do with the subject matter of this resolution. Thank you.
Anyone else? Shall we call the roll?
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
No.
Miller,
No.
Wojciechowski,
No.
Erickson,
No.
Ford,
Nope.
Mayor Palmieri.
No.
Lost 6-1.
All right, and back to the resolution as it is presented. We already, yes?
Well, yeah, are we speaking on
Yes.
the actual, okay.
That was, just to be clear for folks watching, that was the vote on the amendment.
Yeah, so as I said before, I get the spirit of the amendment we just had. I think it's important to note that this whereas that we are keeping as is refers to a specific action that was taken by the mayor, which, right, we do that all the time in our resolutions, refer back to specific actions. And I do want to reiterate that the language that Deputy Mayor Mugrower used is, the intent of that language is reflected in this amendment, that this is us as a city council taking a stance. And I think that's extremely important to point out, especially when we've seen other communities in Wisconsin that have had issues in the front of the New York Times in particular. I guess that's a county in Wisconsin, with celebrating the lack of hate in their communities. So I think that's important that we're taking this stance as a council united. So, thanks.
All right. Any other discussion on the resolution as presented? All right, please call the roll.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Mayor Palmieri.
Aye.
Carried 7.
Thank you. Moving on to council discussion, direction to city manager and future agenda items. We have a report from Assistant City Manager Fitzpatrick regarding the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee recommendations for Chief Oshkosh Monument enhancements.
I'm happy to report on this project. City manager Roloff spoke to myself about it, and also we had the opportunity to discuss it with other department heads. And I prepared a staff memo for the DEI committee, just talking a little bit about the background of this project. And there had been some activity associated with this monument back in 2017, but it was really part of other projects. It wasn't the focal point. And there's been a project that's been brought forward that has been worked on by Dr. Manning, who's a professor at the university, and also some representatives from the Menominee tribe to the DEI committee. And what they'd like to do is update the plaque, or update the information associated with the monument, and augment the existing information with more information about Chief Oshkosh's life and his impact on this region and the Menominee tribe. So in discussing that with City Manager Roloff and also the department heads, we included in my staff memo the idea that there would be a variety of boards and commissions that may want to have input into this project, namely the Landmarks Commission. I think we talked about the Parks Advisory Board because a monument exists in Menominee Park. We talked about the museum and also the library board because the library board also controls the Hicks Fund, which helps for the caretaking of monuments in the city. So it conveyed that information to the DEI group. I think they found it helpful. They brought forward the resolution for consideration and also wanted staff's assistance. So it's my understanding that City Manager Roloff is going to be asking staff to talk to the boards and commission liaisons to those groups, asking them if they'd like to have input into this project. And then after we determine what the interest is, then we can better determine what next steps might be in terms of sharing that information with those interested boards and commissions, and then really ultimately coming up with an idea of what the project scope is going to be, what the costs might be, so we can better expedite the project. So anything else, City Manager Roloff, you'd like to add?
Well, I appreciate the DEI committee gets a lot of credit for getting this back on the front burner because it kind of languished a few years ago. It was at the Landmarks Committee, and so I appreciate them bringing it forward, and staff feels it's appropriate to get this done. How we get it done is really just respecting all the other boards and commissions that may have a say in it. Technically, the statute belongs to the library board because the Colonel Hicks donation made that possible. But obviously, we have some updating correction of history, and Dr. Manning wrote a great deal about the topic and trying to get that all worked out. We want to circle back with all the affected boards and commissions to see if they even have an interest, because if they have an interest, there's no reason to bring them to the table for no reason. And then get the scope of the work is really important because determining what it's going to take, I think there was some numbers that were put together years ago that I don't think anybody really took a real genuine dig at it and find out what it's there. There are also some little quirks to the area because there's an area that the State Historical Society is concerned that could potentially have Chief Oshkosh's remains, and that has to remain untouched. So we have to work around that with whatever we do. So we want to determine what it would, basically what it would cost. The resolution that was put forward by DEI references some approvals. That was for a project that's since been completed because it was a neighborhood association. So before we come back to council and say, we need X amount of dollars for this, we want to know what to tell you on that amount. So that'll be the next step with staff, determine what that'd be, and get this forward, because I think the Menominees have been patient, but I think they're ready to move forward with getting this done as well and kind of set the record straight on Chief Oshkosh's legacy, because I believe the plaque says something about his greatest accomplishment is that the city of Oshkosh is named after him, and it completely ignores the many contributions that Chief Oshkosh had to his people and to, Indian affairs that date back to the 1840s. So there's a lot of good stuff in there that telling that story I think would be great. I asked Brad Larson to get involved a little bit because of Brad's passion for history, is his connection with the Menominee and all the native tribes in our area. So I think we're onto something, and I'll defer now to the mayor because the mayor's had many discussions with different people on this, but getting this project moving forward makes a lot of sense.
Well, I'd like to, publicly thank the former mayor, Steve Cummings, for, initiating this conversation at Landmarks with the Landmarks Committee and, starting that back in 2000, I believe it was 15. And, soliciting donations. And yes, there was a project previously for updating and enhancing the monument from a physical standpoint, and part of that project was some great neighborhoods funding, as was indicated. But one piece just didn't quite get completed on the signage and education and that. But in any event, yes, DEI brought this back, and really appreciate how much work the Menominee tribe put into the content in working with Dr. Manning. Their, historic preservation officer, as known as a knowledge keeper, along with Arnold Chevalier, Dave Granion and Arnold Chevalier on the Wisconsin Humanities Council for their input as knowledge keepers from the tribe, and the former chairman of the Menominee tribe also signing off and approving that proposed language. So appreciate the work that was done previously, and DEI's very weighty discussion and work on this as well.
So our goal is to bring back an implementation plan. And so before the mayor asks to put it on, I'm going to add it to outstanding issues so that we don't let this thing languish. It's been languishing for at least 4 years and arguably 6 years.
6. It was supposed to be implemented in 2016, the 105th anniversary of the monument, and parts of it was, and now we're at the 110th anniversary. So just slightly delayed. Councilmember Ford.
Is there a timeline or a goal date?
We haven't established a timeline yet, but in our discussions with the DEI committee and also the Menominee representatives, they were very appreciative. They were very gracious, but they were also anxious to try to bring it to some sort of resolution as soon as we could. And I tried to impress upon them they exhibited the passion in their resolution, and I just tried to illustrate to them that, our operational part is a little bit more boring, but based on my experience with the council, we wanted to make sure that we did a thorough job, touching on all these areas that might have input into this project. So when we brought it to the council, you wouldn't have to say, well, why didn't you talk to this group or that group? So we want to cover all bases, come up with what we think might be the proper cost and all aspects of this project. So when we bring it to you, we don't have any additional delays. That's really the goal.
And to that point, I think because we've been waiting so long, I think I'm going to envision this in really 2 steps. One, to get Dr. Manning's work out there so people can see it and appreciate it, and then we can take a look at if there anything else we want to do. But I don't want to hold it up unnecessarily. So the idea would be circle back with all the different staff liaisons to the boards and commissions. Do we need to go back to any of your groups for any additional input? And then meanwhile, get an estimate on what this is going to take, because that's really what's held it up. And I have a better understanding based on the input that DEI, the mayors spend on this issue. So I think we're in a position where we can move it forward. And then if there's other stuff that needs to get done, we can worry about that in like a phase 2.
All right, thank you for that update. It looks like we're on to the item for schedule of non-renewal hearings for June 8th. Is that the city manager or the city attorney's item here?
It's a combination, but she's going to punt to me. I think city attorney's already sent out council some information. Mm-hmm. It is a quasi-judicial hearing, so Lynn will be happy that I'm advising you. If somebody calls you, you're really now in like a jury type of format, so I would strongly discourage you from participating in that. The whole idea is that it's quasi-judicial, so there'll be people presenting the case for, and the applicant has the opportunity to present the case why they shouldn't have it revoked, or non-renewal, excuse me, non-renewal. These are ones that have remained unused for over a year, so that's why they're coming forward. So
do we happen to know the date that we last did this? in case newer council members wanted to maybe take a look at that process and
The
become
letters-
familiar.
I think the letters include a lot of that information, don't they, in terms of the history, when they were last used?
No, I mean, the last
process.
council
time we did a
quasi
hearing.
judicial weighing in on those.
I don't know that off
It's
the
either,
top of
it
my
was
head.
2 or 3 years ago, because
Yeah.
I've been a part of either 1 or 2 of them,
Yes,
Yeah,
so.
okay.
and I don't know if we've done.
But we will get
rules.
written instructions for that evening, so very competent and detailed instructions on that, so.
So it'll be a little different because it's a little more judicial than your normal legislative role that you play. So that's for the next meeting.
Can I just interject here or something? A lot of people have reached out to me and just running into people, but a lot of these people are scared. They don't know what this is about and everything. So I think if we can alleviate their fears in some manner. I think the summons probably wasn't the best way to lead with this thing. Maybe a warm fuzzy letter before we summon them, but it is what it is, I guess. So I'm not a fan of the process, but again, it is what it is. So just if we could just be a little more compassionate next time with some of the processes. Thank you.
All right, that's June 8th. Future workshops. Looks like we have a joint workshop with the Common Council, Redevelopment Authority, Sustainability Advisory Board, Advisory Parks Board, and Plan Commission to discuss Chapter 30 subdivision code updates and affordable housing. Proposed date is June 10th at 6 p.m. And due to the number of folks that will be attending that will be virtual. I know this is a little bit confusing. We're in person, we're virtual, but this is more specifically due to the number of folks expected.
Sheer volume, yes.
And then we have a creation of subcommittee to review council compensation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This was put on the agenda after council adopted a resolution, I believe it was in 2014 or 15, that said after the mayoral election, we bring the issue back of council compensation. There are several different ways you can do this. You can say, no, staff, you don't need to do anything, which is certainly an option available to you. Or staff could simply do some research and bring it back to the entire council. Or if you feel you want to take a somewhat deeper dive, council has in the past created a subcommittee of 2 of you to work with staff. The staff will still do the research for you, but then report back, and then that committee can determine, do they want to make any revised recommendations to council. The purpose of that is so that before people can take out papers in December, council action is necessary. It's sort of like, view it as advertising for a position and what does it pay. Before you take out papers, you need to know what the job pays and what that is. So that's really the best analogy I can use for you, but it just lets you know that for those who just got elected, it wouldn't take effect until your new term, and for those who are up for election next spring, it would take effect next spring. So that's pretty much how it works. It's consistent with state law. So if we're going to do it, we're going to do it between now and say before you get the budget going. Because when we present a budget to you, we want to have a pretty good idea of what we're looking at. I mean, it's not a lot of money, but it's just one of those things you want to make sure you have covered. So do nothing, committee, or we can do research and bring it back to all 7 of you.
So the most current research that we have in that memo was from 2016, 2015?
It was 16 or 17.
Okay,
Yeah, it was
okay.
around there.
So it's a bit dated.
Yeah. So doing the research is not a bad idea at all. It's a question of, do you want to give it to 2 of you, or do you want to just bring it back to all 7 of you?
Did everybody get the memo that had that information?
Yeah, I guess if we're looking for input or something, I don't feel it would be a good time to look at any type of increase for us coming out of a pandemic. That's just my personal opinion. So I would just vote to save staff some time and take a pass on it at this time.
So we've done that a couple of rounds now.
How much extra work would it be putting on staff
To
get
update it,
that updated?
city manager,
It's a pretty limited group because the database would be chapter 64 cities, council, manager, cities, and then the cities in the immediate area. So Appleton, Needham, and Asher, and Fond du Lac's chapter 64 cities. So the 5 chapter 64 cities that are close to us in size, and then the local comparables. So probably about 8 to 10 communities.
so
total.
less than an hour's work.
Yeah, you got to return a call or something like that. It's not a substantial amount of work.
Okay. So it's not too much.
It's,
Councilmember Wojciechowski?
I mean, I think just for research sake, it wouldn't hurt to get the most up-to-date information. I think it's useful for future council members to look at as well, so I would be supportive. But I don't think we need a council committee to do that. I think it would be quicker just to have staff do some research on that.
Councilmember Erickson?
I agree. I think as long as it doesn't take substantial amount of staff time, you know, I'm not interested in increasing our pay at this point during a pandemic, but, you know, for future councils, understanding people who may want to run in the future, just knowing how much we've seen an increase in work the last year, I would say, and the hours spent. So I think just to make sure that it's equitable with other communities, I think it's important to look at.
Anybody else? Yes?
I'm ambivalent. I'm kind of like me. I want to just go home and look it up. Give you the information, so you don't have to do the work. That's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to have it, I suppose. I agree that I don't see any situation where we end up raising our own pay because of this, but it doesn't hurt to have it.
between Diane and HR, they know these people, it's their colleagues. It's, I mean, if everybody answers the phone, it could take as little as an hour. But
Sure.
But it won't take a great deal of time. How about if I just collect the information, put it into a newsletter? The paper will love to cover it anyway. So I can put it into a newsletter, you'll see it, and then you guys can react to it.
I just would like to take this opportunity to point out that our deputy mayor does have an additional duty that is not compensated in any way extra as compared to other council members. So, you know, it's also somewhat of a unique position. There aren't too many other deputy mayors, but I'd just like to call attention to that work above and beyond what other council members, but typically there is a rotation. So I had just kind of asked about the committee if we needed that or not, if we were going to consider any kind of, you know, nominal recognition for the deputy mayor's additional work.
And we can do a little digging. That might take an extra half hour.
Okay.
It's a little deeper scratching, because the mayor had asked me about that. We're fairly unique in that regard, but we can do that and report back to you. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Next, we have the council member announcements and statements. Do council members have all of their dates plugged into their calendars for their new assignments and that? Anybody have any updates yet? I just have 2 items, and I have, well, we already got an update regarding the majority of what DEI covered in the last week or so, but they did decide to move forward with the same consulting firm as FEI, and there was a little bit more in-depth discussion about the production of the action plan. It was originally thought that that would be due here over the summer at the 1-year mark, but they also are awaiting some of the draft equity measures. I think from some of the department heads who are still working on that, and as I understand it, doing some training with FEI this week yet. So moving forward, they will work with FEI. They also voted to go back in person starting in June. And then I just have one other announcement here. I'd like to point out that the city of Oshkosh has launched its first Poet Laureate program. The goal of the new initiative is to enrich the lives of the Oshkosh community by highlighting literacy, sharing the values of poetry, sparking creativity, and fostering artistic expression. This effort is a partnership with the City of Oshkosh, Oshkosh Public Library, and the Oshkosh Convention and Visitors Bureau. During that 2-year term, the Poet Laureate will promote the art form through publication, performance, education, workshops, and social media. Applications are now being accepted with the announcement of the Poet Laureate set for September 14th. You can go to oshkoshpubliclibrary.org for information and the application form. That's all I have. City Manager, you're up next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A few items in your agenda packet. Item 47 is, I think Mr. Collins had previously reported to you about a automatic wheelchair securement system. We tried one. It's worked out very well, so we're using some of the other federal money that the Transit Department received to put in them in all of our buses. There's going to be a total of 12 when all is said and done. And it's a exclusive distributor for our buses, so we did a single source, total is $164,000. So those will allow our passengers who are in wheelchairs to secure themselves, and there was a little video on it, very easy, and the reaction that we got from our passengers was really good with the first one, so that's why we're continuing that. The first quarter strategic plan update was in your agenda packet. The summary version, you received a larger version that's a little more heavy, yes, heavy on the paper. And certainly, we're happy to answer any questions you might have. This is the beginning of our strategic plan year or biennium, so there'll be a lot of things that'll either be in progress or perhaps even behind. I'm happy to report in a couple of those areas we had some completion, so that was nice to know. But we felt, we bounced back and forth over the last few years of giving you the whole document. Certainly, I think there's some value that we've got some good stuff in there. I don't want to get overly technical, but we got good stuff in there. And I think it's, in terms of us being transparent about what we do, the other departments, when we started to share it with them, not their own stuff, because they're populating their own stuff, but when they make a request of another department and they realize, wow, they got a lot of stuff going on, they're a little more appreciative of asking for assistance because they know that everybody has got a lot of things going on. And every department is engaged in the plan. The measures, we're still working on improving the measures. I think that's still a good work in progress. And we're checking with other communities. Not everybody does what we're doing here, and that's meant to be a compliment to the staff and for everything they've done, their commitment to it. So with that, if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I knew I was going to get one from you.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard one. No, this is going to be pure praise. Just a shout out to the city as well for putting this on the internet as a public dashboard where you can actually click through this, because that's a heck of a lot easier for the average citizen or for anyone to look through that and kind of dig peel the layers of the onion on our strategic plan and our key performance indicators, as opposed to just looking at a big document. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, when you click the dashboard, it looks like you just have one page. That is the surface. You can click tons of stuff there. It's
interactive.
Every KPI for all the departments, and that was a big issue a few years ago to get that done. And I know that Councilmember Ford, wearing his other hat as Professor Ford, has been monitoring us long before he was on the council. So there's some really, every department has gotten involved, and I know we have some work to do. We're a little heavy on workload measures as opposed to efficiency and effectiveness, but we're moving forward, and I'm really pleased with the progress. And I think Councilmember Ford knows from his professional experience, getting everybody moving in that direction. It's a chore, but they're understanding it, and I think when they're presenting the budget to you, this is a large part of it, and I think they can demonstrate to you that they have their act together when they do that. Madam Mayor, did you have another question?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just going to say, This is much more readable for me than our big, I usually,
Oh, the big sheet.
usually love the matrix, the matrices, but it was just so voluminous and so large. This is really digestible. Thank you.
It's just thicker, but that's okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I'll pass it on to staff. Outstanding issues, certainly we have the update if there's any questions. I will add the monument, just because I think based on the discussion tonight, that'll keep us updating you on that as we go along. Happy to answer any questions you have on that. And with respect to my 4 goals, because of the timing for my mid-year review, you'll be getting the second quarter a little early, just so that I can give you a narrative update on where we are with our annual goals. So I'll be happy to do that. And then COVID-19 update, we've talked about it a lot. I will say that I took a look at the dashboard that the county has. You know, even though we're very pleased with how things have been improving, technically we're still in the moderately high category. So we're not out of the woods yet. So all of the stuff we've been doing to encourage people to continue getting vaccinations and things like that. Councilmember Ford, Deputy Mayor Mugrauer, and I met with Amy Albright from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, taking the Love Oshkosh campaign to a different level, encouraging vaccinations is really the next move. I don't know if Mike or Matt have any comments on that, but I think that's pretty cool as well.
No, the campaign, 1.0 went well. It was a positive campaign, very well received in the community. A week or so ago, this council made a move to put us into campaign 2.0. It's time to encourage vaccinations. It's time to put out all of our energy and effort into that. And Amy and the CVB are fantastic just in general, but they did well the first time, and we've fully supportive of their efforts to try to do this the second time around to improve those numbers and get this community in a better place and do it in a positive way. It's time to stop shaming people. It's time to stop being negative. Let's use some positivity, and that was the gist of our meeting, and came away with some good ideas. So
I agree. Just to harken back to some of the events we approved today on the consent agenda, really celebrating the fact that we're at a point where we can start doing this really cool stuff, and vaccines your ticket to participate.
Yes, seeing the events come back. A question on one of the outstanding issue items, City Manager, regarding the fee to replace special assessments for street improvements. I know that there's been some discussion about whether or not we'll have that new study back in time. I think we have it listed as June 8th, but are we still on target to have that discussion, or what are your thoughts?
We met with the folks from R.A. Smith last week, gave them some direction. I was going to give you an update on June 8th, and I'll leave it at that right now. But I know, based on what you went through at that hearing, that this is not to be waited on.
All right, and then would we also add to the outstanding issues the determination as to when we'll allow public in-person participation at council meetings?
We have a hybrid right now, so are you asking about when we return to full participation? Okay. We can put that on the next agenda, and I think it's really going to be a comfort zone type of thing for council. It's entirely within your realm. We can continue doing this, but I know there were some questions regarding boards and commissions, and just to clarify, because I think there was still a little confusion. The council said what we did tonight, where we had members of the public who chose not to speak here, but they had the ability if they wanted to, and there were some individuals on the screen, our DEI members. We are allowing that, according to the council's rules, for council meetings only. The boards and commissions, they go all virtual or all in person. There is no mixture. So if you want that changed as well, I would encourage you to give that some thought, because I know that's been a bit of a confusing issue. Mr. Fitzpatrick and I just had that discussion today, and so we want to make sure that it's clear for the public. So how about if we put it on the next agenda? I don't even know if I want to, you know.
I was just suggesting on the outstanding issues, but if other council members want to see it on the next agenda, I don't know.
Not opposed.
Fine,
Not
outstanding
opposed.
issues.
Just fine without saying it? Okay,
Okay.
I'll just, I'll keep it on that agenda, but if you want it back, just let me know. Very good. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Guerrero.
I missed the opportunity before, but City Manager Roloff alluded to it. A reminder for council, we have a closed session planned for the evening of June 22nd after your regular council meeting. That'll be just after in-person in 406.
All right, well, we are at the end of our first return to in-person council meeting. Thank you. It's good to see everybody's faces, and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a COVID update or no?
Oh,
You want-
he's,
That was it?
yeah, that was it.
That was it? Just wanted to make sure. I saw the chief back there, so I just wanted to make sure, so. Then, motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. We're adjourned.
You're gonna-
Since we're back in person.